Welcome back to another genre with JB. It's been a minute, huh, guys? Or maybe slightly more than a minute. I know I was going to supposed to get this video out on Tuesday. So my apologies for the delayed release of said video, but we're here now. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today, what I wanted to talk about, as I'm finishing up this piece of, Calgon fan art with Beta Durrell in the foreground. We have our mule stormtrooper here in the background. We have some other passersby in the distant background here, looking out over the vista of the planet Calgon. What I wanted to do is just talk about my reactions to the Foundation trailer. And this won't be a particularly long video. I'm just going to be finishing up this little character today and sort of integrating him into the actual overall scheme of my picture that I'm designing here. So basically, I saw the Foundation trailer via Foundation Era, right? Thank you, Foundation Era. I will put your information in the cards. And I'll also put Apple TV's information in the cards as well. Just as a courtesy, since Apple TV was the company behind the production, and I want to make sure that I'm giving credit to the organizations or creatives behind any sort of content that I'm referring to or talking about. Basically, what happened was I saw the trailer and a few things struck my mind. The first thing that struck my mind was the fact that it's very action heavy, which I'm not entirely opposed to, because one of the things that I actually always piqued my curiosity when I was reading the original Asimov books was all of the described action and conflict that was happening on the pages that we weren't actually seeing, that was being described via conversations between the main players. I was always curious to get more of a visual of what those scenes looked like. Right. I always was very curious about what exactly do these scenes look like, and how exactly do they play out? We hear about Bel Rios, for example, in Foundation and Empire. We hear about General Bel Rios invading planet after planet, subjugating world after world. We hear about the Mule and his, sort of single-minded crusade to conquer the galaxy. And, all of this action takes place off camera, which on the one hand, from a literary standpoint, is very sort of clever and cool, but from a from sort of like a cinematic standpoint, it doesn't really translate. So I totally understand the sort of impulse to want to use the medium of television to sort of visually showcase this, these action set pieces and bring them into the narrative. So I know a lot of fans were kind of upset about that, or had mixed feelings on like the fact that it wasn't as talky as the books. But the reality is, when you have like this sort of a big budget production, you need to like leave it out on the screen. You need to sort of spend that budget, and it's sci-fi. It lends itself to stunning visuals. I mean, like, and also you're creating opportunities for artists like myself, artists who would love the chance to work on an actual licensed Asimov production, and bring their expertise to the table. And I think other fans also, frankly, had a problem with some of the casting choices. They were saying, oh, this is forced diversity and whatnot. And I kind of want to push back a little bit on that, because you have to look at the times in which the books were written. The books are of their time, for better or worse. And, there's a lot of men in Asimov's books, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't sort of update the story for our modern sensibilities, while preserving the core ethos and message of what Asimov was trying to get across, with these themes of psychohistory being a vehicle for predicting the future, and the power of science and technology on maybe the superstitious or the single-minded. And I think those themes can very much still be explored, right? And I'm optimistic. They got, what's the guy's name, Jared Harris, to play Selden. Not exactly what I pictured as Selden, but I've seen him in some other stuff. He seems like a pretty capable actor, and I'm willing to withhold judgment and look at the casting and judge the casting based on the performances and not on any sort of aesthetics for the most part. I mean, there are certain characters, I think, like the mule, where, you know, you want to cast someone with a particular look for the mule. I think that definitely is a sort of a factor, right? You know, he's a mutant, so you want to sort of get that across, that he's this weird. I'm just updating the pixels here. Let me go to view actual size. Not bad. I don't think that's bad at all. I think we'll hit okay there. It's all about creating depth of field. And it's a nice little cover. One of the things I like to do, just going off on a tangent, is I like to sort of shrink my image down to actual printed book cover size on my full screen tablet. And you can't see it, but I'm holding a Dragons of Autumn Twilight 2000 edition up to the screen to see how it jibes with, you know, what I've got here. And for the most part, I think it's standing up pretty well to scrutiny. And then I also like to look at my work in actual size, 1-to-1 with my reference in real time, as much as I can do so. Rather like that. So I think I'm going to save this. And actually, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to look up some reference here for our images, for the remaining images and figures that we have. Before I do that, let's punch up my sketch. Initially, I was going to have two people sort of standing in the foreground here, in the sort of back portion of the foreground, sort of looking at Beta. But I think I'm going to have their backs turned just because, frankly, I want to get to Beta and put this piece to bed. For working on this for long enough, I need to keep my output up. All right. But as we're looking for reference, let me get back to my Foundation trailer reaction. I think that the technology looks interesting. I think that, you know, they're getting the broad strokes of the themes that are involved in the Foundation across in the trailer. We're getting a sense of the plot and the roles that the characters have to play. And really, it's just a beautiful looking show too. As an artist, I do appreciate that. The one thing I'm apprehensive about is the timeline. I really do hope they keep that 1,000-year timeline and that we don't get Salvor Hardin running around with Harry Seldon and Gal Dornick in episode 2. That would kind of irk me a little bit. So Apple, if you're listening, hopefully you haven't done that. But let's see. Let me look here at some reference in my reference folder. It's a beautiful piece of Sid Mead art. I actually used that to get some reference for the floor that I did here. So you can see the sort of floor was very much inspired by that bit of Sid Mead art. And I changed some things around. I completely changed this figure into sort of a marine, one of the mule's marines, just because I didn't like the initial figure. Off reference. It's got quite the plethora of reference photos in here. Oh. We'll open this one. I may have a use for this guy. Oh, we got some Warhammer art. This is from one of my classes where I teach private lessons. So one of my students loves Warhammer. So we practice drawing by doing fan arts based on Warhammer. And I help my student break down each form into its basic shapes. And I'm basically teaching him how to see through shapes in sort of a very subversive way by having him draw things that he likes. So he doesn't realize he's actually learning how to draw with shapes as he's doing the drawing. But it's subversive but effective, right? Because my whole philosophy, and I agree with the One Fantastic Week on this, is you need to draw what you like, because people will pick up on that and it'll be apparent in the finished product of whatever you're producing. And you will be motivated to keep pushing your art and leveling up your art. To use sort of a crude term, leveling up, I don't necessarily like that term, but I do think that it applies in this case. Let's see, it's more Warhammer. We'll save this as Thomas reference. All right, so let me look here. Some more imagery. Some Padme imagery. Oh, this is a cool Sid Mead. Looks like an homage to a piece of Sid Mead art, but very, very cool. I love that card there. It's sort of like a retro futuristic version of a bug, EW bug. So I'm glad to be back with all of you. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody that subscribed to my channel. Please, if you like this content and I don't bore you to death, smash that like button, right? Or you frankly can dislike it as well. That helps me in the algorithm as well. If you hate what I do, give me a dislike. That helps. Let's see, we have Han Solo. That's just a cool shot of Han Solo. So you can see I use both photos and paintings for my reference material. I learned doing master studies. That's how I really got my start with oil painting. And I find that just carrying that thought process through to my work has benefited me a great deal. And these are fan arts. I'm not getting rich off these. So I figure why not incorporate some literally bring in some influences of mine that, and really mine from that in these. Again, just to give a shout out to people that have helped me along my way as an artist, artists like Matt Stawicki, artists like Dave Dorman, artists like Hugh Fleming, especially. I love the way he does figures. Drew Struzan is another guy that more and more I look at his stuff, the more I respond to the way he handles the human figure, the human likeness. Sid Mead and Ralph McQuarrie, of course, in terms of environment design. So quite a few people. Doug Chang, another guy who we're actually going to look at right now. Let's do Padme Handmaiden. Let's look at some images right here. And when I look at these images, I can see that I have several images that come up on my screen. So I'm just going to bring these into Photoshop, and I'm going to bring these into my main document. So let me just select this, and then I will bring this into my main image. Select all, Command C, cycle through, Command V, Command T is transform. This is just more Photoshop, like technical stuff that, can be of a benefit if you're, new to Photoshop. These are some things that will serve you well. And we have some relaxing Nintendo music in the background. Hopefully the guys at Nintendo are like cool with me using their music. If not, I'll find out. So I really like this costume. This is a costume that has some really nice lush oranges and yellows in it. And it'll pop nicely against some of the other colors I have in this background here. Let's see what else we can find on the good old Google here. So if I go back to Google, notice that as I cycle through the images, there's a few more images of this costume and some of the figures in this costume, different builds, different body types, different angles. So you just want to do a nice comprehensive, when you're looking for a reference, Google's a really invaluable resource. So you can just go on and you can find the exact pose you need most of the time. Back in the 80s, when a lot of the guys that I really liked growing up, they didn't really have this sort of access, to information on command. They had to go out and either pose themselves or really seek it out, get models, that sort of thing, get materials from the publisher or studio that they were working for, go to a local art school, use props, and that stuff is still highly beneficial to do that if you have the time and the money and the wherewithal. But if you're in a rush, Google is your best friend, right? So let's go through here and just find some more Padme stuff. Let's see, Star Wars, Keira Knightley, Phantom Menace. Yeah, I forgot that Keira Knightley played the Queen's double in this. This very interesting. People didn't pick up on that. Right. But yeah, no, I'm excited for the new Foundation trailer, and let me know your guys' thoughts on the new Foundation trailer in the comments below. You know, check out the trailer from Apple TV. Let me know if you guys are excited about it. Concept art here. More and more and more. It's Ian McCaig, another great artist. All right, well, looking through here. Very interesting. And I think in a few minutes, what we'll do is we'll just cut this. Just want to make sure that good didn't stop there. Go here. Just looking through. This is. Oh, this is just someone who doesn't like Rise of Skywalker. Oh, there's Roast Burn. There's Dorme. Interesting. So I think what I'll do is a 3/4 view and a front view here. So I'm going to go to my layers palette. Bring this all the way up. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. And then what I'm going to do is hide certain layers. So I'm going to hide my face layer. And then I'm going to go below. So if we go background people 4. Make a new layer called Handmaidens. I figure Foundation is supposed to take place 30,000 years in the future, so why not throw in some like differently garbed people, you know, put in capes and things like that, make it look really otherworldly and bring more of a fantasy feel to it. Let's see here. Let me go back and just go into all right, let's go here. Just grab this orange. I just want to see how this shakes out. All right. And it looks like that's going to create a really nice contrast with what we have in the rest of the image here. And we even have a good amount of shading on this side of the figure, we can certainly amp up the lighting effects, tweak the light source. The other thing that I want to do is just, let me exit out of here for a minute before I get really into this. What I'll do is just finish up. I'm going to put a little drop shadow down here underneath our little Rocket Man. So I'm going to go to Rocket Man. And I think after I do that, I'll cut it for today. Go. We'll just come in. Do a little visual trickery here. Not too crazy about that. I'll do Rocket Man shadow. And then if we go up to blend modes here, we can do different blend modes. I'm just trying to get the general silhouette of the shadow here. Obviously, I'm going to heavily edit this. Let's reduce the hardness there. I like that shape. Now what we need to do is reduce the opacity. And then we need to apply a good old filter to it, a Gaussian blur. Let's see how that shakes out. And I think that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna cut it here, right? But I hope you guys had a great time as we took this journey together through the surface of the planet Calgon, and I'll be back next week with more Asimov fan art content. Till then, take care, guys, and have a great day. Arrivederci.